So I'm excited to introduce you this morning to Dr. Shaun Harper, Provost Professor in the Rothier School of Education and the Marshall School of Business at the University of Southern California. He is also the Clifford and Betty Allen Chair in Urban Leadership, founder and executive director of the USC Race and Equity Center, and a past president of the Association for the Study of Higher Education. Please help me welcome Dr. Shaun Harper.
Thank you. Beautiful. Please, another round of applause for Brianna Mims. Brianna is a senior at the University of Southern California in the Gloria Kaufman School of Dance. Special shout out to her professor, Sabella Grimes, who worked with her on this really important piece. I understand that we are, in fact, in California, not in Louisiana. I also understand that NASPA held its annual conference in New Orleans 4 years ago in 2015. But I decided to open with this piece of heartbreaking images from Hurricane Katrina, frankly because I think often about Katrina as a heartbreaking but useful metaphor and example of extraordinary human suffering and the carelessness for people who are devastated by human suffering across our nation and on our campuses. You might recall that during Hurricane Katrina, in a live televised interview during a relief event, Kanye West, man, I missed it, oh, Kanye. Kanye West famously declared in that interview that George W. Bush doesn't care about black people. Now, West's critique was in response to the slow federal response to the human suffering in New Orleans and elsewhere along the Gulf Coast. You might recall that more than 15 million people were devastated along the Gulf Coast, and that New Orleans was especially impacted. We saw images and videos of dead bodies floating in the streets, heartbreaking images of children and elderly people weeping, and photographs of the Louisiana Superdome being overwhelmed by more than 25,000 evacuees, most of them black. Because it took our nation's chief executive so long to get the resources and the attention there to New Orleans, West declared that clearly this leader doesn't care about black people. I will tell you that in our work at the USC Race and Equity Center, many of you know that for now more than 12 years, we've done campus racial climate studies at a multitude of colleges and universities all across the United States. Every geographic region, every institution type. Whether those climate studies are focused on the ways that students experience our campuses, or if they're focused on the campus climate for employees, faculty and staff members, including student affairs professionals. We hear one thing consistently from people of color in general, and black people most especially on every campus at which we've done a climate study. The thing we hear is the thing that Kanye West said in 2005. This institution doesn't care about black people. Now, I know that some of you may think that perhaps this is not an appropriate metaphor, because Katrina was seriously devastating. People literally lost their lives in this storm. Some of you may say that sure, there's suffering, perhaps, on our campuses, but nothing of the magnitude of Hurricane Katrina. One thing that I attempt to make clear in my work is that it isn't just one-time catastrophic events that engender suffering for people of color. It is the everydayness of racism, the everydayness of sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism on campuses that engender devastation and suffering for people of color. Students tell us in their interviews with us for our climate studies, and now in their responses to our National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates, the center's new quantitative survey, they tell us through their protest and their activism that the water is rising. One of the most gripping images from Hurricane Katrina is this one of people stranded on the rooftop of a home, surrounded by filthy floodwaters. These people spray painted on the roof, "Help! The water is rising." Students of color through their survey responses and through their activism, are telling us the water is rising. White supremacy is rising. The continued assault against women and some men on our campuses is rising. They're telling us that the threat of deportation is rising. They're saying, help college leaders, help student affairs administrators, help college presidents, help faculty members, help us succeed, help us resist, help us persist. They're calling for our help. But the ongoing and persistent and pervasive ignoring of people who are suffering and people who are calling for our help in America and on our campuses is exactly what we do in America. This is America. The same America that attempted genocide for indigenous people. The same America that stole those people's land. This is America. The same America that enslaved my people for more than 400 years. The same America that enacted legislation to exclude Chinese immigrants. The same America that took huge parts of Mexico, claimed it as its own. The same America that for way too long, and for no good reason, denied women the opportunity to vote. The same America that created Plessy versus Ferguson and the so-called separate but equal doctrine. Same America that sustained Jim Crow. It is, in fact, the same America that in one election elected Barack Obama, actually in two elections, elected Barack Obama president of these United States. But it is the same America that has only elected men to serve as president. The same America that had an opportunity to elect an extraordinarily experienced and qualified woman to lead our nation, but instead elected a man whom several women said assaulted them, sexually harassed them. That America ignored them. The same man who, in his own words, on an Access Hollywood tape, bragged about assaulting women and grabbing their body parts. The same America. This is America. Many of us are troubled in these times by many of the things that I just named, many of the images that you just saw. Especially this one. The point here is that colleges and universities are mere reflections of an America that sustains suffering, violence, neglect, assault, power asymmetries. The same things that happen in our broader society absolutely happen on our campuses. This is, in fact, the America that created colleges and universities, the so-called colonial colleges, that didn't afford access to indigenous peoples, took their land. The least you could have done was offered them access to the colleges that you built on it. The same America that was only willing to offer access to indigenous peoples with the project of attempting to Christianize them. The same America that built colleges and universities that profited from the enslavement of African peoples and the American slave trade, as Craig Stephen Wilder so masterfully documents in his book, Ebony and Ivy. The same America that, in fact, used enslaved African peoples to lay the bricks and build the buildings that still exist on college and university campuses. The same America that, in fact, denied women access, denied women the opportunity to participate meaningfully as students, far longer than we've afforded them access to enroll. The same America that created public, historically black colleges and universities just so black people wouldn't be at the same public colleges and universities as white people. The same America that resisted the enrollment of black students at public universities, especially across the American South. That, too, is America. It's not just what Donald Trump does. It's not just what we see in the news about things happening in other places in our society. These very things are happening on our campuses. 6 days after tiki torch carrying white nationalists marched on grounds at the University of Virginia, I went there to address the faculty and staff of that fine university. I opened up with this image from a week prior. I asked them, raise your hand if you are horrified and disgusted by the white supremacy that was on display on your campus a week ago. By my estimation, every hand in that auditorium was raised. Now I'm going to ask you, raise your hand if you are horrified by this image and the catalog of other images that I just showed in that video. By my estimation, that was almost all of you. I'm going to tell you, like I told the faculty and staff at UVA in August 2017, you cannot be selectively horrified and disgusted by particular manifestations of white supremacy. You have to be horrified, disgusted, and outraged by all of it. You know, we get so outraged by Donald Trump. We were so outraged, in fact, after Charlottesville, when he failed to demonstrate the kind of leadership that our nation needed in that moment. We were so outraged when he said, but there are very fine people on both sides. How outraged do you get when your college or university president doesn't fail to doesn't denounce white supremacy when it occurs on your campus? Do you get as outraged then as you do by Donald Trump? We get so outraged by Donald Trump, by his failure of leadership when it comes to issues of sexual harassment and sexual assault in our nation and our government, everywhere else. But do you get outraged by the political science professor on your campus who routinely harasses women in the political science department and elsewhere? Do you get outraged by the threat of ICE terrorizing your students? Do you get outraged by the everyday manifestations of violence, gender violence, violence against trans students and trans employees on your campus? Do you get outraged by the ways in which employees of color get pushed out of your student affairs division? This is the America in which we live. We would be fooling ourselves to think that these are only issues in the White House or in your state house. There are also issues in your student affairs division, in your biology department, in your business school, in your residence halls. We can't just be selectively outraged by these big national issues. We have to also be outraged when they come to our campus in a local fashion. For example, blackface. Do we get outraged when the IFC fraternity once again hosts a blackface party or a south of the border party parodying Latinx students or deportation parties, right? This image is not from years ago. It's from like last week at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I am going to argue to you, my friends and my colleagues, that again, we can't just be selectively outraged, but I'm also going to say to you that outrage isn't enough. We need more bold, courageous leadership. We need more vice presidents and vice chancellors for student affairs to use the power and the platform that they have to stare white supremacy down in the face and say, you are not welcome here. We need senior leaders to stand up and say, enough with gun violence on our campus. Enough with sexual harassment and sexual assault on our campuses. But you can't just be outraged. You also have to do something. We all of us at all levels, we all have to do more to demonstrate care for those who suffer on our campuses. This would not be a proper Shaun Harper major conference keynote address without Beyonce. So let's take a couple moments here to reflect on care, moving from outrage to care for those who suffer on our campuses. care. I wrote a piece for the most recent issue of NASPA Leadership Exchange. It's up, it's available on the NASPA website, it's available through the Leadership Exchange app. If you don't have it, you can get it through the Apple iTunes Store, Google Play Store, wherever else people get their things. It's all there. But I wrote a piece for this conference, which is about things that higher education and student affairs leaders and professionals can do to demonstrate greater care for people of color on our campuses. In the piece, I present 12 actions, but I make very clear that these are not the only 12 things. This isn't a just add water kind of piece, right? But these aren't the only 12 things that leaders and colleagues can do to demonstrate care. But they are, in fact, 12 things that will really make a world of difference for people of color, especially those who suffer on our campuses. I will leave some of those for you to read after this conference. But I will share with you here what I believe are at least a handful of things that we all should do to demonstrate more care. The first thing is that we have to believe people when they say that they've experienced racism on our campuses. We have to stop getting defensive. We have to stop invalidating those people's experiences by saying, oh, but it was this other thing, right? When a woman of color, for example, tells you that she has experienced a unique convergence of racism and sexism, you ought to believe her, right? There's a way that we go about invalidating what people tell us. We got to stop doing that. Instead, we have to listen actively and with empathy to what they're telling us. We have to take it as feedback. We have to get as outraged by it as we are by the things that Donald Trump does. We have to call for an investigation into the experience. We have to call for more communication and conversation about how such an experience, in fact, can happen on our campus and how this one is not likely an isolated or one-time incident that only one person has experienced. We have to use it as an opportunity to make our communities better as opposed to attempting to discredit her or attempting to pacify her or have her immediately move on from her trauma. It's one thing we can do. Another thing we can do is routinely and systematically assess our campus racial climates for our students and for our employees. As you know, it's the thing that we do most at the USC Race and Equity Center through our National Assessment of Collegiate Campus Climates. There's a thing that happens every year in Inside Higher Ed. They do an annual survey of college and university presidents. And they ask them a pair of questions about race relations on campuses. More than 80% of college presidents, it's usually closer to 90% as a matter of fact, in that survey report that they believe that race relations are either good or excellent on their campuses. Those same survey respondents, college presidents, also report, though, 80% of them, that race relations are bad or terrible on other people's campuses. They're delusional. Could your dean of students be delusional? Or your vice president, or assistant and associate vice president, or your trustees, or the chair of your faculty senate? Could they too be delusional about the realities and complexities of race on your campuses? Care for people of color means that you actually take the time to learn the truth about how we experience campuses. That you don't make assumptions, you don't make presumptions, but you actually assess it rigorously, systematically. But assessing it on its own is not enough. You might recall that I lost my temper a bit in 2015 when phones were ringing off the hook at the then Penn Race and Equity Center. This was at the height of the student protests at Yale, Mizzou, Claremont McKenna, and everywhere else across the country. Very distressed college presidents and provosts were calling, asking, how fast can you get here to do a campus climate assessment? We're afraid that our students are being inspired by the protests that they're seeing everywhere else. How fast can you get here? In losing my temper, I wrote what I thought was a very eloquent essay in Inside Higher Ed titled, Paying to Ignore Racism. The point here is that assessment on its own is useless. If you want to demonstrate care for people who suffer on your campus, you got to do something with the feedback that they give you and the insights into their experiential realities. You got to do something with the data. Those people have taken the time to unpack and at times relive their trauma to make our campuses better, to make our campuses more inclusive. The least we could do is honor that pain and that trauma and the generosity of their insights and perspectives and do something to actually fix the campus to make it more equitable and inclusive. I argue that in the leadership exchange piece. Let me give you maybe a couple more, and then I'm going to leave some for you to read on your app or on the website. If we want to demonstrate care for people of color, we got to demonstrate care with high degrees of intentionality for all people of color. When we talk about race on our campuses, we have to move beyond the black-white binary. Now, to be absolutely clear and sure, I am not saying that we need to stop talking about black folks and the extraordinary suffering that we experience on campuses. What I am saying to you, though, is that Native American, Pacific Islander, Asian American, multiracial peoples also suffer. They also have experiences that are worthy of our institutional attention, that are worthy of our inquiries, that are worthy of interventions, that are worthy of policy corrections. If you want to demonstrate care for AAPI peoples, go talk to them. Ask them about the realities of the campus for them. Ask them what their unique needs and experiences and expectations of the institution are. Then do something with what they tell you. That's how you demonstrate care for those and others who are often disregarded in our conversations about race. All right, let me give you maybe just two more. Some of y'all, this is going to be hard. It's going to be real hard. Some of y'all don't know how to demonstrate care because you were never taught. Some of you don't know how to talk about race in a productive way on your campus because you were never taught. We argue at the USC Race and Equity Center that you cannot do racial equity if you can't even talk about race. If you want to demonstrate care for your colleagues of color, for your students of color, you got to fix your racial illiteracy. My colleagues, Suman Pendekar and Jade Agua at the USC Race and Equity Center lead this extraordinarily important and impressive professional learning and organizational change series that we call the USC Equity Institutes. Through the institutes, we literally teach higher education leaders and professionals and faculty members how to do the things they never learned anywhere else in their professional upbringing as it pertains to race and racial equity. You can't just say to the people that I care about you, that your suffering infuriates me, but yet do nothing about it or do the wrong thing about it. You got to know what to do, how to do it, right? I make the argument in the Leadership Exchange article that no vice president for student affairs was born with the skills to manage a multi-million-dollar operation. No one was born with the skills to know how to effectively manage crises and to reduce risk and the threat of risk on our campuses, or how to lead a complex organization that has hundreds of employees that serves thousands of students. Those were skills that were learned over time. Those people had to read a little something to learn how to do those things. They had to go to some workshops, to some trainings, to some institutes to learn how to do those things. Racial literacy demands the exact same professional investment in yourself, in your staff, and in your students. Okay, I promise. This is the last one. This is the last one I'm going to give. It's the last one, I promise. You can read the rest in the article. I'm going to take it back to Charlottesville. The morning after, the guys in the khakis marched on the campus, on grounds there at UVA. The president of that institution released a statement. It was a 4-line statement, 4 sentences. You mean to tell me tiki torch carrying white nationalists were just on your campus the night before and you release a 4-sentence statement? My colleague, Dr. Charles Davis, at the USC Race and Equity Center, and I wrote a piece for the LA Times in which we critiqued the president's 4-sentence statement. Our problem wasn't that it was 4 sentences. Our problem was that it said absolutely nothing, literally no mention of racism or anti-Semitism. It was unclear why the white nationalists were even there. I understand, as we grapple with the slippery slope that is free speech, I understand, trust me, I work with lots of higher education leaders on this topic. I've testified to Congress on this topic. I understand the complexities of free speech, especially at public institutions. I understand that the president of that university and the presidents of other places that are represented in this audience where people have come with hate, that you can't tell them that they can't be there. It's not my problem. That's not the problem that I have here. What I argued with Charles in the LA Times piece in response to the 4-sentence presidential reaction to the crisis in Charlottesville is that, yeah, you can't tell them perhaps that they can't come, but you sure can be out there on your megaphone and say, you are not welcome here. These are not the values that we have. You are terrorizing our students. We care about our students. We care about our community. We care about the people of color who work here. You are not welcome here. You know, we get so frustrated by politicians who won't stand up against gun violence because they don't want to piss off the NRA and they don't want to lose voters in their next election. We get so mad at those people because their political careers seem to matter more than the people who are murdered in mass, in movie theaters, in synagogues, in elementary schools and high schools. We get so mad because they're protecting their political careers. If you want to demonstrate care for people of color, you got to care more about them than you care about your own political career on your campus. You got to be as mad about white supremacy, about sexism, about xenophobia, about everything else, transphobia, that you're willing to put your political self on the line to demonstrate care. I thank you in advance for reading